things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. Nick, I have to tell you, I'm not nearly as good a gambler as you are.
No, you lost money again.
I lost money to Nick last night, and let me tell you now, I used to watch sports, CC, and I'd be like this. Oh, I hope a certain team wins, and I'm rooting for a great game. Now I watch like this. Oh, God, how much do I owe Nick?
What's going on? Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Oh, there we go. There we go. We got it. Good looking out. Yeah, no.
Anyway, that being said,
Jenna
I owe Nick
understood
some
the
money.
excitement of gambling last night because she had Boston plus the 6.5.
So stressed out about it.
Meanwhile, Cece's getting a gambling phone call, I think. So even though Philly had the game won, you had to watch to the last second.
The last second.
To see if there's a made free throw here, a 2-for-1. Yeah.
I can't with the last second watching being stressed out for all the Celtics reasons and for my own. That being said.
Bad beats.
Yeah.
With that said, the juice starts tomorrow if you don't pay me.
That is
the interest. I mean, you owe me money.
All
I'll give you a one-day
weird words.
grace period.
Just say interest. The juice starts tomorrow. God knows what I thought that was. Hey, let's start the show right now. Someone needs to talk to the Cavs about time management. So it takes them 2 weeks and 7 games to beat the Pacers in round 1. Then in round 2, they turn around and sweep the Raptors in a week. Hello, time management. Cleveland moving on after beating Toronto last night. LeBron with a casual 29 points, 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double. After the game, LeBron James spoke about the need for some well-deserved rest.
We've had 4 or 5 seasons wrapped in one. We've talked about it all year. We know what the narrative has been about our team, but I can only speak in the moment. And to be able to put ourselves in a position where we can, represent the Eastern Conference in the finals, that's all you can ask for. So we're excited about being a part of the Eastern Conference Finals once again and have an opportunity to compete for a championship. That is what our goal is. We are excited about that. We're humbled about it, and we want to continue to get better throughout this week.
CeCe, we've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks about what Cleveland's narrative is and what we think they're going to do and what they've shown us they were going to do. And then all of a sudden, after the Pacers series, they come out and they do this to Toronto, sweep them. What did sweeping this Toronto team show you about the Cavs?
Well, it was a transformation. LeBron mentioned it there. And as far as the season being maybe 4 or 5 seasons, I had said yesterday and last week it was 3 seasons. But he's saying 4 or 5 seasons based on training camp was a season itself, LeBron being hurt, the first part of the season, between the first part of the season getting to the All-Star break, the trade, after the trade, and now the postseason. But in the 7 games against the Pacers, and it was a matchup thing, but it was also a confidence. Who was going to support LeBron James? The Pacers, I think, Nick, you had this number. They had 7 guys averaging double figures in the first series. 7 games. LeBron had Kevin Love barely at 11 points, the only support that he got. No contributor to LeBron on his team and the Cavs getting 20 points in those first 7 games. But in this series against Toronto, only 4 games, they got 6 players in double figures. LeBron still playing at a unbelievable peak level, but LeBron still needed a buzzer beater to be able to beat Toronto, even with this support. And with that support comes confidence moving forward. So I was wrong about the Cavs. I thought the players would continue playing. Nick was like, they can't continue playing like this. They will snap out of it, and they did. And we saw that in the 4 games.
And I thought they'd snap out of it. I didn't think they'd go from collectively playing their worst basketball, the non-LeBron Cavs, to collectively playing their best basketball. Like that, I thought they would maybe water would find its level.
There would be a transition.
A transition, that they would eventually things regress to the mean, but they're now over their skis somewhat in the level Kevin Love's playing, the level George Hill's playing. That's higher than I anticipated they would be able to get to.
But is it really higher? Maybe because of the dip and they were playing so bad, but this is the George Hill I expected. When they traded for George Hill,
you're right.
This is the Kevin Love that we've always expected, especially absent of Kyrie Irving. He was very, very comfortable playing, being the second guy compared to being the third.
Maybe I set my expectations a little too low because of how bad they were in the first round. But you're right about LeBron. LeBron in the first round, 34, 10, and 8. LeBron in the second round, 34, 8, and 11. So a few more assists, couple fewer rebounds, but he's doing the same. Like, his shooting percentage is almost identical. The difference is, of course, the supporting cast. And the reason that's relevant is because, much like I said yesterday, LeBron was rewarded in the shot against the Raptors being single covered for a decade plus in the league making the right basketball play. LeBron in the second round was rewarded for consistently trying to get his teammates back into it in the first round, for not throwing them under the bus, for still going to open shooters even when they were clanging it off the side of the backboard, because it allowed them to stay engaged. And while he didn't need his teammates in round one, except for a 3-minute stretch in game 7. And I think they could have beaten the Raptors, not a sweep, but could have beaten the Raptors without his teammates in round 2. You're going to judge LeBron by championships. People are going to judge LeBron by, at the very least, getting to the finals. They're not going. He knew, I can't win 4 playoff rounds by myself. I might not be able to win 3 playoff rounds by myself. Might be hard to win 2 playoff rounds by myself. So if I do not keep these guys engaged and do not continue to show faith in these guys, our season's going to end. We just don't know when. And so I give the players credit for hitting their shots and LeBron credit for sticking with them.
This isn't the kind of thing where sports pundits were like, hey, the role players aren't playing. There was a Saturday Night Live skit, which reaches like a different societal level. Like, my parents were, are there other people that play besides just LeBron James? Yeah, those are the role players who didn't play in the Pacers series, who decided they were going to show up and play in this series. Do we just assume this is going to be the same core group of guys, the same guys Ty Lue starts, the same guys, the way they play as they move on now into the Eastern Conference Finals?
Well, I think George Hill, and George Hill missing part of the Pacers series was a huge problem. We expect George Hill being a veteran player. He's very, very dependable. As far as his overall ball handling, it helps LeBron get a little bit of a rest. Kevin Love embracing the 5. Ty Lue making some hard decisions as far as things that he was doing.
That being one of them. He didn't want to embrace the 5.
I expect the Cavs to continue on this because Kevin Love, 20 points, 12 rebounds. That's not outside of his talent level. The confidence they were able to gain in winning that 7-game series against the Pacers, all right, because LeBron talked about it, the coach talked about it. It got them ready for a lot of different things. It got them ready for the ball pressure that they would see from Toronto, had them more ready for that than they thought they would have been. But it also, in not playing well, it breeds confidence when you're able to come out of it. So see JR get 20, to see Kevin Love to be able to snap out it, Jeff Green be able to make a contribution. Yes, I believe this is the Cavs team we'll see going forward.
And this series erases everything that they left on the table in the regular season. And by that, I mean this. When you get the 4 seed instead of the 1, 2, or 3,
that's a good point.
Your first round matchup's tougher. And so guess what? It took you 7 games. And when you go 7 games, then all of a sudden, because you're the 4 seed, you're playing the 1, that now you're playing every other day. LeBron talked about that before the series. We're the only series that doesn't get 2 days off. So all those things that, because they had been not great for 89 games, you're the 4 seed. You don't have extra rest. Well, now they're going to have more rest than anyone in the playoffs. They're the first team to advance to the conference finals. They're going to be on the road against Boston in the conference finals. That's a comfortable place for them. That is exact place they were in last year. They'll most likely steal home court from them in the first game of that series. And so that's what the Cavs were able to do. I want to mention one thing about what the Raptors did, but go ahead, see. You look like you would.
No, I just thought it's the irony to where the Cavs are, the way that started off 2 weeks ago. Golden State, how many games have they lost in the playoffs?
Golden State has lost 2 games in the playoffs.
Houston, how many games have they lost?
They've lost 2 games in the playoffs.
And the Cavs are done round 1 and the semifinals. They only lost 3 games.
They've lost 3 games.
But they're done.
Right.
But you would think
that is, right now, Golden State and Houston here are the best records in the NBA playoffs so far, by winning percentage. Golden State and Houston, 7-2. I'm sorry, 6. No, that's correct. 7-2. Cleveland, 8-3. Those are the 3 best records in the playoffs. Those were the 3 teams that by the midway point of the year you probably thought were going to be the best teams. The losses came in a different order, and so it feels different, but it's about right for where it should be.
Before we move on, just quickly, what happened to Toronto in this series?
Well, I can give you an idea of what happened to Toronto. I know people want to fire their coach. We'll get into that. Yeah. I understand that the Cavs have now won 10 consecutive playoff games against the Raptors. But let me just show the audience. We haven't done a blind reveal in quite some time. This is LeBron James compared to somebody. So in this series, LeBron 136 points to 138, a 5% better field goal percentage, almost identical rebounds and assists.
I think I got this one.
Who do you think it is?
I think it's the backcourt of Toronto.
Well, let's show America. Who is it? It's both of them.
That's what I'm talking about.
There you go.
That's what I know my guy.
Well done.
Okay.
I mean, so that's what happened to them.
That is amazing.
That's their 2 All-Stars.
That is amazing.
That's your 2 guys. And LeBron had almost identical numbers at a slightly higher efficiency rate. LeBron's great. He shouldn't take the place of 2 All-Stars, your 2 best players. That's what happened to Toronto. They knew individually neither one of those guys was going to outplay LeBron. But for LeBron to outplay them collectively, that's how you get swept.
Yeah, and I don't like to use what they say LeBron is in Toronto's head, but it's clear he's in those 2 guys' head.
Absolutely.
No, Valanciunas actually said it afterwards. He's like, I don't get it. I don't get how somebody could just have that much control over us, and we went in and we didn't play our game because we were just stuck in this mindset that LeBron James is going to beat us, and that's exactly what happened.
And Valanciunas is one of the few guys who maybe wasn't in his head. He actually played relatively well this series.
Exactly. And again, we're going to talk more about Dwayne Casey and this series coming up over the course of the next couple hours. But on the other side, how were the 76ers finally able to beat the Celtics? It's next on First Things First.
This time of year brings us 2 things, graduations and Father's Day, and the gifts that go along with them. Before you buy Dad another tie or that grad a balloon that's just going to float away, ask yourself this: does my dad or my grad like wings or sports, or better yet, both? If the answer is yes, then get them a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. Right now, if you purchase $30 worth or more in store or online, they'll give you a $5 bonus to keep for yourself. That's a gift that gives back. How generous of you. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, the other game last night, T.J. McConnell threading the needle to find Ben Simmons. For Simmons, 2 of his 19 on the night.
TJ, don't call me PJ McConnell.
Man,
played
get in
himself
there.
a ball game yesterday.
Yeah,
Absolutely. He
did.
Man, he was the boost that they needed.
Absolutely right. CeCe said he'll start calling him TJ if he starts playing better. He's TJ today.
Much respect.
All right, so the Sixers and Celtics series lives to see another day. Celtics tried, but couldn't close it out last night. Foul trouble hurt him. Solid Sixers defense hurt him. And the fact that I bet Nick the Celtics would win hurt him. And I'm just a terrible bettor. Sixers win Game 4, 103-92 to stave off elimination. Good news, they didn't get swept. Bad news, no team's ever come back down 0-3 in a regular series. Just regular news. Game 5 set for Wednesday back in Boston. Nick Wright, how were the Sixers finally able to beat the Celtics?
Man, they basically got 5 quarters of offense, and the Celtics got 4 quarters of offense. When you take 19 more shots than your opponent, it doesn't much matter if you only hit 7 threes. Like, they were plus 10 on the offensive rebounding. They had 7 fewer turnovers. So they just got more, to use a cliche, bites at the apple. I mean, Embiid didn't play great. Simmons didn't play great. Robert Covington, once again, a total no-show. But when you have that many extra chances, you are going to, and by the way, your season's on the line and you're at home. I mean, if you can't win that game, I don't know what the hell game you can win. And on the flip side, see that the Celtics offense looked to me going into the series what I thought they'd look like a lot. Just not enough scoring out there to compete with Philadelphia. They've obviously proven me wrong on that, but last night their offense looked like I thought it would.
It looked like their offense had looked, and also that's how the Celtics have played on the road in the playoffs, except winning game number 3.
Yep.
We believe that Philadelphia gave them the game in the second half of the fourth quarter. But you have to talk about T.J. McConnell and what he was able to do, because their coach, under a lot of criticism, me in particular, gave him criticism because he made decisions in games 1 through 3 that I believe affected the outcome. I believe he was totally outcoached in the first 3 games. He makes the lineup change and goes to T.J. starting. So what does that mean for the 76ers? Brad Stevens, what he had done was they had really rushed the three-point line of 76ers in games 1 through 3. But what TJ gives them is the ability to not stay at the three-point line and be able to get to the basket. Ben Simmons couldn't get to the basket with his dribble because they put big people on him, and they played off of him because he couldn't shoot.
They didn't rush him. Yep.
TJ, they had to be able to try to drive him off the three-pointer, and he was able to break down the defense with his dribbling and driving and able to open up the rest of the offense. So he was a huge part to what they did in game number 4.
That's the lame duck theory I brought up yesterday, that what Boston has had going for it in this series is they don't have any lame ducks. Every guy, when they get the ball in the perimeter, is a threat to drive, a threat to shoot, a threat to pass. While Philly out there has a lot of guys that are only a threat to do 1 or 2 of those things. Ben Simmons is amazing, but he's only a threat to drive or pass, not a threat to shoot. Bellinelli is only a threat to shoot. Robert Covington is only a threat to shoot, really. Robert Covington, who's had a miserable series outside of game 2. TJ McConnell, as limited as a player as he is,
you know,
he's a threat to do all 3.
And
Ilyasova.
Covington and Ilyasova, none of them dribble the ball well.
Right.
So you can play up on them. You don't have to worry about them going past you. So I believe that the substitution to TJ was a drastic change in style for what Philadelphia had been doing.
And don't leave out the fact that a lot of the Sixers they were in foul trouble early. I mean, they in the first half they were in foul trouble, but Brad Stevens kept everybody in and didn't want to really change anything. And it just seemed like they were a little hesitant, going up for rebounds, trying to play as aggressively as they wanted to, and they just couldn't get it done.
Listen, this was a game you brought up a lot. Role players play better at home. You saw Boston. Only Al Horford shot better than 50% in this game, and he only took 6 shots. So, like, anybody that took more than 6 shots shot less than 50% for Boston. Meanwhile, for Philly, if you get 44 combined points from TJ McConnell and Dario Saric, you don't need Embiid and Simmons to have monster nights. Like, if you'd have told me Embiid and Simmons were going to combine to go 12 of 30, I would say, oh, so Boston completes the sweep.
Like Sarge hasn't been real good in the playoffs. This is the first time that he's had a game where he had that type of stamp on the game.
These two, Simmons and Embiid, haven't been great in the playoffs. They had a good game yesterday, but this is not the series that we thought it was going to be, like you said.
Well, listen, Simmons has struggled enormously in this series. Like Simmons, we are seeing in a series when they can game plan for you, when you have, especially if you have a savvy coach on the other end, if you have a big hole in your game, take what LeBron said. Think about what LeBron said 2 games ago about Dwayne Casey in the 2011 finals. Think about how in 2011, LeBron had already won 2 MVPs. He probably should have, at that point, had 3 MVPs. He had led a team to a finals 2 separate times in his career, but he was not a fully complete player. And savvy coaching by Dallas totally took him out of his game. So if you're Ben Simmons, you've won 0 MVPs. You've never taken a team to the finals. Never took a team to the NCAA tournament. You've never played in big games since high school or since whatever it was. And so if someone can do that to LeBron, someone's going to be able to do it to 20-year-old Ben Simmons. That's what he's dealing with. Like, Embiid hasn't – the Celtics, again, I would put it on coaching. The Celtics have done a great job of pulling Embiid away from the basket. And so much of Embiid's value is defensively, and in the series prior, they'd been able to pull him away from the basket. Philly was able to overcome all that yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a great watch watching these young players who – you know, we're trying to make them the best in the league. But as they said last night in the telecast, they still have some tremendous holes in their game, especially Ben Simmons. Now, the thing about LeBron probably in 2012, the summer, the 2011, the summer, he probably wouldn't admit that Casey and the Mavericks did this to him. To me, it's wondering how long does it take for Ben Simmons to realize what LeBron did and realize, man, I need to add other things to my game.
What did you mentioned the summer. What did Kenny Smith say at halftime that you liked about
He said
Philly?
He wasn't rooting against Philadelphia, but he was hoping for the sweep. He was hoping that Boston would sweep them because a number of people have put Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in the top 20 NBA players. And they're great players. They're going to be great players. But right now, they have tremendous holes in their game. And this summer, with the embarrassment if they got swept, would really force them to get back into the gym and be able to work on their games.
All right, meanwhile, game 5 is set for Wednesday back in Boston. All right, coming up, do the Dallas Cowboys have enough weapons to compete for a Super Bowl? That is next on First Things First. Last night, LeBron and the Cavs. CC's basically left the studio. They swept Toronto, and in so doing, Canada remained the city called LeBronto. The Cavs were in control all game and shot nearly 60% from the field. Nick, how important is this rest now for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Man, they had played every other day since Game 5 of the first round. Like, LeBron's played in 93 of 93 games this year, led the NBA in minutes played in the regular season, led them in minutes played in the postseason. This is wildly important to get rest, recuperation, all of it.
And the reason why it's important is because now they're playing well, the rest, so they won't be sitting back with memories, bad memories, regret. So now they have all these 4 games of great memories looking forward to playing in the finals. I think it's critical for them. I think it will help transfer. We will look at this in a 2-week span, how this team transformed.
And it removes the possibility of injury. We saw yesterday, Shane Larkin for Boston. He goes down. Marcus Smart, he gets re-injured but plays through it. Like, the more games you play, the more chance someone gets hurt.
All right, even though the Cavs were able to pull off the win, there was, not surprisingly, still some drama. Reportedly, Rodney Hood refused to enter the game in the fourth quarter after not playing all game, probably because of how much he'd already contributed, said nobody. Nick, what do you make of this?
All right, listen, man. When J.R. Smith, when my guy J.R. has got to be the veteran voice of reason, you have gone askew in your professional career. Rodney Hood has been awful this postseason. Looks like he cannot hold on to the basketball. I said a couple days ago, I would like to see Jetty Osman get his minutes. And Jetty Osman isn't ready, but he couldn't be worse. Jetty Osman got his minutes. To turn down going into the game when everything's going well for your team, and see, it's a chance for you to get into a rhythm. It's a chance for you to see some shots go down if you are needed in the next round. This is a terrible move by Rodney Hood. Terrible.
Yeah, but he's human. And with the slumping, averaging 4 points, with the big trade, because last year when they traded Gordon Hayward, they let Gordon Hayward leave as a free agent. Rodney Hood thought he was going to be the guy in Utah. You know what they did? They drafted Donovan Mitchell. So they ship him off to Cleveland. Since he's been there, he hadn't been the type of player. And also, if Rodney Hood had showed well, it would maybe bode well for LeBron coming back. But he's a young player. He's not as athletic. He's not a knockdown player. He's struggling. So, yes, I don't condone this behavior, but do I accept it and realize that, yeah, this is a reality of being in pro sports? Yes.
Wow.
All right, on to the Sixers and Celtics. Philly was able to pick up their first win of the series. However, things got a little spicy between Terry Rozier and Joel Embiid.
Now, where's that lady from?
I don't know, man. Not this planet.
In other words, 6'2" versus 7 feet. They got into a scuffle. CC, who you taking in that one?
Oh, it's not. Man, listen, you can't beat big. You can't beat Joel Embiid. I mean, he's too big. Now, Rozier, man, he has gained a bunch of respect. But
kid.
Big, 7 foot, I'll take Joel Embiid. He can put his foot on him, because if he lay his hands on him, he'll hurt that little kid.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing, though. I bet Rozier's been in a lot more fights than Embiid. A lot more. Rozier's from Youngstown. He's got the wings on his neck. Rozier's a tough guy. Like, I understand Embiid's got the reach and the size. I get all that.
This is what I'm going to tell you. Terry Rozier is probably a champion in his weight class, bantamweight. Okay, but Joel Embiid, not as many fights, but all knockouts in his wins.
Terry Rozier could fight for like 3 hours and not get hurt. Don't you think that Joel Embiid would take one swing and throw his shoulder out?
Good point. Yeah, a little glass jaw potential. I like it, Jenna Wolfe.
On to the NFL. The Patriots are reportedly working with Rob Gronkowski on tweaking his deal for this upcoming season. Gronk is scheduled to make a base salary of $8 million. Chris Carter, should the Patriots give Gronk more money?
This is the thing I think is really interesting about this comment, because I know the Patriots just didn't go to him and be like, you know something, you want some more money?
Here it is.
So to me, Rob Gronkowski and him trying to decide if I'm going to continue playing football, haven't decided yet. But I could be swayed into playing with a little more money. So absolutely, because they got money to give him. They have gotten off with the Tom Brady deal for a number of years, with Tom Brady giving them whatever you want to call it, hometown discount. Tom Brady hasn't benefited for that because the Patriots have not spent up to the cap, up to that line, that threshold every year. Every year they've had money available. so they should give it to the player. Tom Brady should get a pay raise, and Gronk should get a pay raise. It's not something that New England does, and I'm not worried about a precedent getting started. These players have earned it.
That's the thing. Sometimes teams say, I remember when I was in Houston, for example, they had a rule. Rick Smith, and he was the GM there before he took a leave of absence. We never negotiate deals during the season.
And a lot of teams have rules similar to that.
There's a precedent. We never do this. We never negotiate deals 2 years early. We'll do it 1 year early, but 2 years early. But guess what? J.J. Watt comes around and wins Defensive Player of the Year a couple years into the league, and he gets a new deal 2 years early. And that doesn't create conflict within the team because the players know, okay, well, this guy is a special circumstance. If you do something for Brady, or even if you do something for Gronk, the other guys on the team know, well, these are our two best players. These are the guys on the team with the most championships. These are the most longest tenured players for all intents and purposes. So I don't think it sets a negative precedent. I also think the retirement thing is real. And I think with Brady saying publicly, I'm going to play at least 2 more years, they don't just want Gronk back this year. They want to incentivize Rob Gronkowski to play at least 2 more years as well. As long as Brady's there, their Super Bowl window is wide open, so you want Rob Gronkowski there. So if it costs you a few extra $1 million that you don't have to pay him, I absolutely would do it.
Is most of that incentive-based, though, for what he'll get?
I think you can combine it in incentives because it's hard to give a player like Rob Gronkowski incentives because he's played to such a high level. I mean, what do you make the incentive of? 1,000 yards? Well, he's done that multiple times. 10 touchdowns, you make that. If you're going to them for an increase in pay and it's based on you playing well, you want that in your base salary.
Yeah.
No, I want that in my base salary, and then all the extra things, I already have those in my contract anyway.
So a base salary, I just want to renegotiate. I just want to get a couple of these down because I never know.
And you got to
what
get
say.
Brumley in there for
Base
handle care.
Brumley.
You got to get
Witt!
Brumley in there.
Where's Witt?
Yeah, and no, you don't worry about Witt. Shanks is in town.
Shanks?
You can holler at him.
Let's
Mr.
not do this.
Shanks?
There you go.
Okay.
You're teaching me well.
Listen,
the student has been
overplaying your hand a little bit here.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, he goes by ES.
ES.
No, he doesn't.
What up, G? What up, B? Moving on to the Cowboys. Their offense will
Send your applications if you want to replace Jenna.
Right. We love you, Eric Shanks. Their offense will look a little different this year after some big changes over the last few weeks. They released Des Bryant back on April 13th. Then Jason Witten retired last Thursday. Cowboys CEO Stephen Jones knows things won't be the same. Take a listen.
Jason and Des, Tony, you know, they've been kind of synonymous with these Cowboys the last 10 years, so I understand that. At the same time, we've got a lot of great young players who are coming with Zeke and Dak and, you know, our offensive line and, you know, a lot of young guys to point to now. So, you know, I don't really look at it as a transition as much as I do just resetting.
Not so much a transition as a resetting. CC, do you think the Cowboys have enough talent to compete for a championship?
I think they have enough talent to compete in the NFC. I don't think they have enough talent to compete for a Super Bowl. I worry about their playmakers offensively. Of course, we've been over this as far as the lack of speed, the lack of proven playmakers that they have in their offense outside of Ezekiel Elliott, the tailback, and defensively. How good are they going to be? Are they going to be able to get to the passer? Are their linebackers going to stay healthy? And their secondary, which was very young, probably played better than people expected. Where do they go from here as a group? So there's a lot of question marks. I like where the Cowboys are at, absent of not knowing who's going to be their number 1 receiver.
Listen, the last time I saw a team compete for a Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl with a team built like this was the 2005 Super Bowl between the Steelers and Seahawks. And by that, I mean a team don't have a dominant defense, don't have a dominant quarterback, but have a great offensive line and a great running back. That's what Seattle had with Shaun Alexander, with Walter Jones, that's how they got there, and to a degree that was similar actually to what Pittsburgh had that year with Ben Roethlisberger as a young player before he was a star. But over the last 15 years or so, how do you make the Super Bowl? Either you have an amazing defense or an amazing offense. Like, I know that sounds silly. Let me rephrase it. Amazing defense or an amazing quarterback, right? Like Philly last year, we thought they had both. They ended up by the Super Bowl only having the amazing defense, but their quarterback then played great. Like, I just haven't seen this done recently, where a team, how are we going to get there? We got a great running back. We have a great offensive line. Now, because they have that, and that travels, and that's really weather independent, they're going to be a team that their basement's very high. Like, it's hard to see the Cowboys being an awful team when you have Zeke Elliott and a great offensive line. But I just don't see enough explosion. And explosion doesn't just mean pass catchers. It means guys' ability to get to the quarterback or force turnovers. Who are those guys on Dallas?
Yeah, the one thing that the question that we haven't had answered is, what if Dak turns into what Coach Mangini calls a force multiplier?
There you go.
He makes the wide receivers better. He makes the tight ends better than what they are, which we see with some of the elite quarterbacks. Then Dallas has that capability. Say their defense goes from a top 15 defense to a top 5 defense. Then they have that ability with a good defense and the ability to churn out the clock. And listen, don't forget the type of football they play. It's a hard type of football to defend. It's hard to duplicate week after week, but when you get into the playoffs, you can do that for a month of time.
Okay, so how much of this is predicated on Dak Prescott and hoping we see the Dak Prescott from year 1 and not the one we saw in year 2?
No different than you. You're the quarterback of this show. It's impossible for them to play well without him playing well. It's impossible for us to play well without you playing well. It's the responsibility of the quarterback. We give him too much credit and give him too much blame. So, yes, the Dallas Cowboys, they got the same pressure Jenna Wolfe got.
I feel it. We're the same. I always say, guys, I'm just like the Dallas Cowboys.
That's totally correct. And when we're talking about competing within the NFC, within the conference, I just want to go through the quarterbacks real quick. Here are the quarterbacks in the NFC that I am certain are better than Dak. Wentz, Rodgers, Breeze, Ryan, Russ.
Wait, slow down.
Yeah.
Wait.
Go a little slower.
This is the NFL?
All right, in the NFC, just the NFC, the quarterbacks that I'm certain are better than Dak.
Carson Wentz,
Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Cam Newton. There's 7. All right, that's 7. Only 6 make the playoffs. Now, how about quarterbacks that I think Dak is in competition with? Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Stafford.
Whoa.
Jared Goff, Alex Smith, Eli Manning. Maybe Jameis. Throw Jameis out. So, and then the quarterback, maybe this is the more important names. Here are the quarterbacks I'm certain Dak's better than. Mitch Trubisky and Sam Bradford. That's it in the whole conference. So when we're talking about Dak needing to be good, he needs to be really good because the great quarterbacks are now in the NFC. For a long time, it was like, oh, Big Ben, Peyton, Brady, Rivers, all these guys in the AFC. That's not the case anymore. The quarterbacks are over in the NFC. So Dak doesn't just have to be better than last year. Dak could be way better than last year and still the 8th best quarterback in the conference.
And that's why it's important for that defense to be, because that's who they're going against. So does ball control win out over these great quarterbacks going against your young defense?
And Dak's got his work cut out for him. He's not going to have the comfort level and the familiarity of a Jason Witten or a Dez or someone to throw the ball to that he knows. He's going to have to work with almost all new weapons, so it's a lot for him to do.
And we've talked about the benefit of having the rookie quarterbacks or the quarterbacks on a rookie contract. With Dallas, that benefit's muted because they're still paying Tony Romo. The Dallas Cowboys this year, CC, the salary cap's $177 million. They're spending $23 million on players who aren't on the team.
Dead money.
13% of your cap is on dead money. What could that go to?
That could be 5 good players.
Or it could have been Sammy Watkins plus another couple decent players. Like, you have $23 million that allocated to guys who no longer play football for you. That's a tough putt. And when I'm going to do one other cap thing. You got $86 million to your offensive and defensive line. You got $23 million to guys who don't play for you. That leaves less than $70 million for every linebacker, safety, defensive back, wide receiver, tight end, running back on your team. Less than $70 million for all the guys that we consider playmakers. Like, that's a tough putt.
Maybe they'll all take a hometown discount.
Yeah.
Maybe every single position will take a hometown discount.
Man, they're making a good contribution to television.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. Coming up, how much pressure is Carson Wentz under, speaking of which, as he returns from injury? Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by Super Bowl champ Greg Jennings.
What up, good look?
Good morning.
to see you, sir.
Good morning.
You good?
I'm great.
Great night
You
last
had a
night?
haircut in New York City yesterday?
I did not.
Oh, it looks like you do. Just hairline looks great. I thought you got a haircut since I saw you last.
Appreciate that.
Apologize.
Which was yesterday.
Gotta
That,
keep it.
I remember that now.
Way to go, Jenna Wolfe.
Yesterday I had some issues with when the last time Greg Jennings was here. I have no such issues anymore. I know when he was here. It was yesterday. Guess what, Greg Jennings? Guess what Carson Wentz and I have in common? We are both confident we'll be ready for work at the start of football season. And while the Eagles don't really care so much about my availability, they certainly care about Wentz's. The Eagles quarterback was trending towards an MVP caliber season before tearing his ACL back in Week 14. Now 6 months into a 9 to 12-month recovery and rehab process, here's Wentz on that rehab.
It's not fun. It's quite the process. It can be painful some days, but, so far everything's going well. Where I'm at, I'm very confident. My goal is to be back for Week 1. And as far as changing me as a player, there's just things that I'll continue to learn throughout my whole career. There's times where you look back on the tape and say, okay, I could have maybe avoided that one. Just know when to cut your losses. But overall, as an aggressive player, I'm not going to change, so to speak, and I'm not going to let this slow me down going forward. I truly believe I'll come back stronger than ever. Especially, having to miss the playoffs, miss the Super Bowl, that as much as exciting as it was, there's just that little uneasiness inside of me to have to miss those games that, I truly believe I'll be back stronger than ever, and I'm not too worried about it going forward.
So, Greg Jennings, the bar's a little different for Carson Wentz this year than last year. Expectations are very, very different. No one thought he was going to rule the world last year, and then he came in and he basically did it before he ended up getting hurt. How much different will this season be for Wentz after this team went and won the Super Bowl without him?
For Wentz and his mindset, it'll be no different. It'll be absolutely no different. And I know you're looking at me like, what? How?
Yeah, why?
The expectations for the team will be a little different because now you're the target instead of being the hunter. Like you have the bullseye on your back. But for Carson Wentz, for him to not be a part of that playoff run, that push, and in that Super Bowl game and leading that team, even though he was on the sideline, he played a huge role. He still has that hunger, that desire, that passion to give you everything you need for a guy that feels like, yeah, I was a part of it, but I didn't do it. So now with that mindset, with that psyche, you have your leader who still feels like, I got to get this done. Because personally, selfishly, he didn't get that done. He was a part of it, huge part of it. He was a reason why they were where they were, ranked in the position that they were in. The ones, absolutely. But without being able to complete the process, he's still going to have something he feels like I have to prove for not just everyone else, but for himself.
I don't doubt the hunger he'll have, and I don't doubt how hard he'll work and all those things. I first of all, I don't think many football players, certainly not many guys that play as high-profile position as a quarterback, even if he would have been in the Super Bowl last year, would look at it after year 2, oh, I won a Super Bowl, now I can relax. I don't think most guys do that, certainly not successful guys. What I do wonder, though, is, I don't want to use the word pressure, but I do think there is a level of expectation that he is dealing with this year that he was not dealing with going into last year. Last year, he had an up-and-down rookie season, but people, the top 2 quarterback everyone was criticizing was Jared Goff. People thought the Eagles were potentially a team on the come. They'd be better. Wentz had shown flashes, and then he bursts onto the scene, might be league MVP. To play that well and then get hurt and then also have your team win the Super Bowl without you, I feel like that is a heavy burden on, man, the people are going to think, if we don't get back there this year, the common denominator is me. Like, I'm the difference. Like, whether that's fair or not, if I were him, that's how I would feel.
I think that Carson Wentz, and I think the organization would do a good job of letting Carson Wentz know it's about the totality of the franchise, how talented this roster is. I mean, because let's not forget how they won. They won with defense. They won with getting after the quarterback, taking you out of your run game, really good special teams, and been able to get the ball to all the players. Now, Carson was involved in the game planning for all those games, and he saw that the team was still a good team, even though the quarterback struggled. The quarterback played 2 good games, basically 6 quarters.
Yeah.
The 2 quarters against Minnesota to start the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. We can give them credit for that. But it wasn't like this offense took off. It wasn't like when Kurt Warner took over in St. Louis and then the offense took off. No, the offense went backwards.
They struggled.
Let's not forget that. So he's not going to feel the pressure. I would think he'd be under different pressure if he wasn't a legitimate MVP candidate from last year. So he saw that there's no need to rush this. I can play this game. I got the support of the organization. They signed Darren Sproles to come back. Because I saw what Nick Foles did. Let me get the ball to these good players, and I think that that's what he's going to try to do, Greg.
Yes, with the general manager, Howie Roseman, has done an unbelievable job with making sure they have backups for the backups. Like, when you look at their depth chart across the board, offense and defense, they have guys that can substitute and not lose anything.
Yeah.
This is what Carson Wentz is coming into. He just picked up a Mike Wallace this offseason to take the place of
Torrey Smith.
Of Torrey Smith.
Yep.
Yes.
Like, in my opinion, better receiver right there. So you upgrade right there. And Doug Peterson, has done an unbelievable job all year last year. Frank Wright is the only question mark. You lose your offensive coordinator.
Yes.
But you still get somebody, Mike Groh, in the building who you have a relationship, a rapport with, who was a receiver coach last year. Now he's the OC. So there's expectation for, I think, the team now to do it again. But for Carson Wentz, no, I agree with you.
I think also because they've added these players you mentioned in Mike Wallace, there's going to be a certain amount of hunger in these players. Also, they had a lot of frontline players. Jason Peters, Jordan Hicks. None of these players were in the Super Bowl either
Darren
with
Sproles.
Carson. So they have that same type of attitude. Yeah, I will be at the ring ceremony, but we didn't make the kind of contribution. So I think they have enough of those things to be able to keep their interest.
The other thing that Carson Wentz talked about was what kind of player he'd be when he came back. Now that he's been rehabbing for the last couple of months, is he going to change the kind of play that he does? He looked at that last play where he got hurt and said, maybe I wouldn't have gone for it as far as I did. He got to sort of weigh everything now, weigh what the team is expecting of you and weigh the kind of player that you're going to put out there. If you're Carson Wentz, either of you, how do you approach that?
I just believe that for the 16 years I played in the league, probably 13 of those years, I would watch the film and learn something instantly. So you're continuing to learn. And when you've never been in a situation before, everyone's like, oh, yeah, I would change. Well, as a player, once you see the film and once you know the reaction time is a little bit different, of course you change. That's how you get better. It's not that he's going to avoid running, but he realizes I put the franchise in jeopardy if I put my health in jeopardy.
That's the key right there. I think this play, this injury has shown him the importance of his position and what he can do to prohibit them from making sure that they have a future sustained with the quarterback play that he's given them.
It's why I hate, and you guys might hate my opinion on this, that on an interception in a regular season game. I don't want a quarterback trying to make the tackle.
I'm with you.
Like, there are certain things where you got to lose the battle to win the war. I know the competitive nature of you sometimes takes over. I get that. But the position is so disproportionately important. That play, I understand it was a big game that could decide home field advantage. It was also 1st and goal from the 3. Like, sometimes you have to live to fight another day.
But you're not thinking that way when you're on that field.
Now, are you talking about the play he made, or are you talking about throwing an interception, him going after interceptions, things like that?
Both things. On an interception in general, unless it's the playoffs, I don't want my quarterback chasing down the guy. I think he's too much in jeopardy. I want him staying healthy.
Well, we're all on this team together. If you damn threw it, you need to go get it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay? If you threw it, go chase him down. You the one threw it out there.
On that play, the 1st and goal, there are things, but I think it's hard. I'm sure it's hard in real time in the moment.
You threw it?
Go
chase it down. Greg, we'll see you a little bit later in the show. Let's end on a high note. Coming up, why have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons struggled so much this season? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by former NBA All-Star and stellar dresser Carlos Boozer.
Good to see you.
Carlos, you probably get that a lot.
Morning.
Walking down the street, probably random people walk up to you and say, "You're a well-dressed man."
Very true.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Accurate.
I like how you
Facts.
say that.
Straight facts.
Let's dive right in. If you're a fan of non-sweeps in the NBA, then the Sixers-Celtics series is for you. Facing elimination, the Sixers bounced back at home last night, beating Boston to stave off elimination and to stave off humiliation. So much hype surrounding this young, talented Sixers team, and yet they needed a strong game last night just to beat the Celtics 103-92. Boston now up 3-1 in the series. Carlos, I'll start with you. How are the Sixers, do you think, finally able to take out this Celtics team?
I did a good job last night. They put McConnell in the starting lineup, had a great game, came off the bench with energy, always does that, but he scored a lot of points last night. I think he had 19 points. Dario Saric was their leading scorer, which is huge for them. Their two young superstars had 2 double-doubles last night, points and rebounds, did very well. They were more physical. Obviously, I got a little chippy out there, playoff basketball, you know how it is. But they did a great job of using all the other guys.
Sure.
More guys got involved in the scoring and did a good job on defense.
I think when this series started, you looked at it and said, oh, the Sixers are clearly the advantage here. They have Joel Embiid, they have Ben Simmons, they've been playing lights out. I mean, Rookie of the Year candidate, just fantastic players, young, exciting, so talented. And yet, besides last night, where they played okay, they showed up, they weren't outrageous. They've struggled a little bit in this series. Can you break that down a little bit for us? Why, what that is, if it was a mental or if it's just the fact that the stage is a little too big for them?
Yeah, they haven't shot the ball very well, especially this series, but that's playoff basketball. You're playing against a very well-coached defensive team in the Celtics who they watch the film. They know what you're good at. They're going to try to make you go to your weaknesses.
Right.
And this young team is learning out what the playoffs are about. So I think it's a combination of the Celtics are doing a great job of scouting out what the Sixers do very well, trying to take them out of it. At the same time, the Sixers are trying to grow up right in front of our eyes, their first playoff experience together against a very good team. So those two combinations are the reasons why.
What were you most uncomfortable defending? What type of player? Maybe you can give me a name. There's a reason I'm asking it. But what's the type of matchup that when you saw it, I got to guard this guy or this type of player, it gave you the most trouble?
Yeah, for me, it was like a Dirk Nowitzki kind of pick and roll with Steve Nash because he was 7 foot, so his size was a factor. I'm 6'9", he was 7 feet, shooting a 3 behind his head. And if you get up on him, he could drive by you. And that team that Seattle had where it was Rashard Lewis, Ray Allen, and Radmanovich, that the pick and rolls you really couldn't switch because they were all three-point shooters as well. So those were the matchups that I struggled with because they were great three-point shooters, so you had to recover to the paint on drives and get back out to shooters.
The reason I ask is what this series is revealing to me at least is, and I think Joel Embiid is going to finish second in Defensive Player of the Year this year, and deservedly so. He's been outstanding. And we saw him even in the NBA All-Star game, the ability to, on a switch, go out and guard guys. Like, he's been great. But where he's been neutralized is if the guy he's guarding is just going to hang out in the corner to shoot threes like Aaron Baines. Right. If the Celtics are saying, we're not going to run any post plays for Baines, we're not going to try to beat you that way, and it seems like he had been, prior to last night, schemed out of the series a little bit defensively. Is that what you were saying?
No, it's smart because you're getting one of the best defensive guys in the game away from the basket. Even when he's guarding Horford's spaced out at the three-point line. That takes that defensive anchor out of the paint and gives up more space to the other guys.
You could definitely tell in last night's game, Joel Embiid on purpose, a lot of times, he didn't go to the corner. He went and guarded whoever was in the action, whoever's in the pick and roll. So he's starting to figure it out. Now, as far as Ben Simmons, we've seen, because they got through the Miami series, you're like, oh, man, rookies for the first time. Playoff experience doesn't matter. But to me, and you have to judge the totality of the playoffs after you're finished compared to one series. Now, he's struggled big in series number 2. What do you look for him going into year number 2 next year after seeing what's happened in the playoffs? How can he improve his game?
His jump shot. I mean, you think about it. If this guy gets a jump shot, the league is his. You know, he's dominated the regular season.
But how hard is that?
Yeah, you got to put the time in. I mean, you got to go in the gym.
And learn how to shoot the basketball?
Get up 1,000 shots. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it has to be accurate. You have to at least shoot 50, 60% from open shots, at least shoot 35% from the three. If he does that, his team goes like this.
Now, Kobe broke down Ben Simmons and said he needs to restructure his jump shot.
His form.
Now, how do you do that? We haven't heard many NBA players. We heard potentially Lonzo Ball when he came in, that might be. But Ben Simmons, is that a real thing? And how successful do you think that process can be?
It's going to take time. You know, obviously, anything that you want to be successful, it takes time. But he's got to do it, though. At the end of the day, if he gets his jump shot where he's more accurate and he's shooting, 65, 70% of mid-range shots and he's shooting 30 to 35% from three, his whole team goes like this because now he's a threat. It changes his decision-making. Like that offensive rebound he got where he tried to tip it in real quick, he would have grabbed that, got fouled, went to the line, knocked down 2 free throws calmly, and they win game 3.
That's game 3, right?
And this series is 2-2.
Well, and Philly had a 22-point lead in game 2.
Yeah, that's true.
They blew it. They had every opportunity to win game 3. They blew it through bad turnovers, bad decision by Simmons, some bad coaching mistakes. I know it sounds odd, they could be up 3-1. I'm not saying they deserve to be up 3-1, but a couple bounces, they could be up 3-1 on Simmons. The Lonzo thing's different to me. Because Lonzo's got a ridiculous form, but it had been effective for him every step of his basketball career until the pros. He didn't have to worry about not getting his shot off. He was bigger than most guys. He was more athletic than most guys. Ben Simmons, how surprising is it to you that he hasn't ever developed in his entire basketball career, high school, AAU, year at LSU, just a semi-competent 12-footer. Like, that's the part that's shocking to me because he's not a guy who was playing center his whole life. He's a guy who's been a point guard. He's been a big point guard. Why do you think he's never developed it? Because he didn't have to? Because he could just get to the rim on everyone? Like, is that a failure in some youth coaching? Like, why do you think he's gotten to this point to where he doesn't even think to shoot the ball outside of 6 feet?
Well, that's a good point that you made about Ball. You could say the same for Ben Simmons. He's been the tallest player, the most athletic player, maybe the most talented player on the court.
Even more so than Ball.
Yeah, no question, because he's 6'11", so at the end of the day, he didn't really have to get a jump shot because he could do so many other things and be effective. But now the playoffs come, and as you guys know, it exposes your weaknesses. So if he does get in the gym, get a jump shot, whew, lights out.
But when you say, let me ask you this, if both players reach their full potential, who do you think's the better player, Simmons or Embiid?
I think Simmons. I think because he makes his teammates better with the pass.
He's also a lot further away, too.
Yeah, no question. No question. Embiid's by far the best player right now, but if he reaches his potential, he could be the better player.
All right. Carlos, we'll see you a little bit later on the show. Coming up is Joe Flacco on the hot seat in Baltimore. Next on First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.